So part of this video, this live stream, was prompted by a video that was shared with me a little earlier this morning. And it brought this to mind because you often hear, that people talk to God or God talks to them. There's a difference between people talking to God and God talking to them. You can talk to God, but when this other flip side, and people can know that you talked, you can hear me talk. I'm talking to God, and you can hear me talk, so you know he's talking to God. But if I say God talked to me, you can't disprove it. I can't prove it, but you can't disprove it. So anybody can come up and say, God talked to me. I'm under the direction of God. I have to follow God's rules. I have to follow God's law because it overrides man's rules, right? And you cannot prove that I did not hear the voice of God. You cannot disprove it. You may not like what I claim God told me, but why would God talk to this fellow versus that fellow? So, and if you're a Christian, if you look at the Bible, out of the whole Bible, who would you say had the closest relationship with God? Would you say it was probably Jesus? Out of the whole book, out of 66 books of the Bible, would you say it's probably Jesus had the closest relationship with God? Because clearly, from the understanding of mainstream Christianity is that Jesus pre-existed in heaven with God. There's a good portion of Christianity that claims that Jesus is God, the Trinity, God, the Holy Spirit, the Son of God, all three in one. So clearly, all those things, I think, and Jesus was the one chosen to come to earth and do the things he did and whatnot. So when Jesus said that he talked to God, look at the treatment he got. Now let's look at how this faith-based saying on the story of Jesus and talking to God. So here's Jesus, and God presented him with things, and when Jesus told the things that he supposedly heard from God, most people didn't like it. Most people scoffed at him to the point of at age 33, the religious leaders of his day turned against him, and the government put him to death, executed him as a criminal, alongside with two other criminals, as the story goes. But nowadays, the way that people try to interpret, yes, I believe that God talks to that man right there. And why is that? Because people like what this person says, the message they're giving. It rings, tickles their ears, so to speak. And of course, they would say a very popular preacher like Billy Graham was, or like Joel Osteen, any of these well-known, wealthy evangelical preachers out there that, yes, clearly God talks to them, right? How would you know? Because they're successful. Look at them. They draw tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. But that wasn't the one in the Bible that we call Jesus, who had the closest relationship with God and talked to God, and God talked to him, didn't fit that role of popularity, didn't have a message that was pleasing. It just didn't fit, did it? So the bottom line, just a little comment or two about that. And so where am I going with this? Well, first of all, of course, I can claim that God talked to me. God gave me a message. God told me to go a certain direction, and God told me to do a certain thing. Now, there are people that claim that, and they end up doing something like a few years ago, a couple of decades ago or so, a lady in Texas claimed that God talked to her, and she drowned her kids in the bathtub. That's not going to go well certainly didn't go well for the kids, and not going to go well for anybody. So we've got that level of God talking to you, which is not most people are not going to like that. Not most people are not going to go along with that program, even though you could find similar equivalent things in the Bible where God made such orders, but we're going to go that level with it. But I can claim, or anybody can claim, that God talked to them, and they can move through their life as if they were hearing the guidance of God in their ear, in their head, whatever. So I've been working on, first of all, this has been the last year or so. I'm going to work on some projects to try to free myself of weddings. I'm not saying I'm going to get out of weddings, but I've got to have alternative sources of revenue for one thing, and something to do that I enjoy for another. I have aligned myself with a lot of people that are dealing to the paranormal, which to me falls right in line with any form of religion, because when you're dealing with gods and angels and so forth, you're dealing with the paranormal. I think it goes hand in hand. It's all paranormal. God's an alien. Angels are aliens. It's all boils down to labels. It's like, what is, if you're not of this world, you're alien. If you're not of the United States, you're an alien of the United States. So you're dealing with paranormal. So I used to listen years ago to a fellow named Joshua P. Warren. I hadn't thought about him in years, and all of a sudden he popped up on one of my social feeds and brought to my attention something I probably heard of earlier in life, but had forgotten about. It's called a wishing machine. And I've written a book about how to get what you want, a certain mental process, certain things you do. If you really want something, you strive hard to get it. What mindset do you need to use? I had a friend of mine up in Canada wrote some little books on the subject, and she would call it future pool and those kind of things. This wishing machine is a fascinating little tool. A lot of people really buy into it and pay good money for this little machine. It's called a wishing machine. And I'm not going to go through the process. I don't have one built. I've got all the parts to put these things together on order. And except my version of this wishing machine is a very enhanced version. And so to get people to understand what's going on, all around us is energy. And we'll take, for instance, like radio waves. Whatever signals, I'm a ham radio operator. These signals are out there. They're constantly, we're being bombarded. Wi-Fi is a radio signal. It's a different frequency, and it's I'm doing all this on Wi-Fi. This is all wireless all over the world. This is sending to these hotspots around the world. And you never know it if you didn't have a device to collect this information or a device to transmit this information. You would never know that these waves are out there. You would never know that the radio waves, AM, FM, satellite is doing the same thing, except it's bouncing off of satellites, retransmitting it. But it's all radio waves. So the air is full of this. This energy is out here. We call it radio waves. This energy is 100% out there. It's measurable. But you've got to have the two devices, one way to transmit it, one way to receive it. But all the transmissions are going on because all these people have these devices transmitting this data constantly. The internet, most people operate wirelessly. We deal with the internet on our smartphones. So there's constant through the air, but you've got to be able to grab it. It's there. You can send stuff out, but then you've got to be able to grab it. It's not a question. You can't see it. As it sits out here, you can't see it, you can't feel it, you never know. You could be sitting without any devices or anything and never know that all these waves are around you. So it brought back to mind in my earlier days when I used to experiment with a lot of electronics. I was really into electronics back in the day. I took a lot of courses, and I learned about diodes, capacitors, transistors, soldering, put together stuff, circuit boards in the early days, of course, dealing with the tubes. But anyway, it reminded me that I built a crystal radio. Now, some people may have never heard of a crystal radio, so I'm going to talk about that. There is you can build a radio and you can receive these waves without any power. That's what a crystal radio does. It's a way to build a coil, a diode, and just basically spare parts. There's only one or two parts you might have to get from an electronic store, which is very few cents. But the rest of it's just spare parts you've got laying around. And you can build what's called a crystal radio. And that crystal radio you can grab according to the size coil you build, those kind of things. Most of them are very small, and you get maybe AM transmissions from AM radio, but no power supplied. You're not hooking a battery up to it. You're not plugging it into a wall. You're not getting any electricity, but you're able to receive those waves. The reason we step it up to add electricity to it is because, number one, you can receive these waves and you can actually hear it as you tune it in. It's just not amplified. It's almost faint. It's understandable, but faint according to how close you are to transmission where these waves are being generated. And so it's an interesting concept, because if you deal with a wishing box, people say, well, there's no power supply here. If you go back in time, and you're familiar with Tesla as it's being used now for sending people into space and cars, electric cars and whatnot, you got to understand that Tesla was the one working on sending electricity. In other words, his idea was that we wouldn't have to run this electrical wiring all over creation. We could just have a tower and through radio transmission, transmit electricity. Because based on the crystal radio, that's basically what you're doing. You would have to amplify it, but through the atmosphere, you're sending this out. So the wishing machine is based on a similar principle, because you are sending out an intention and you're tuning it in. And the way you're tuning it is with your finger on this pad, and you know that you've got this dial set right when, as you're swiping your finger across this pad, all of a sudden your finger starts sticking. At that point of that finger feeling like it's not easily swiping across that pad, it sticks just when you know you got this dial set. And some people use 3 dials, some people use 6 dials, some people use 9 dials. They're all more fine tuning, if you will, to send the intention out and to be able to get sent out to the universe to get what you want. You could look at it almost as another way of prayer, except you're adding this component of energy to it that you don't have in the act of just vocalizing or mentally thinking about a prayer. A lot of people really support this theory and claim to have gained a lot from using these wishing machines. So I've taken this whole design based on these concepts and also added to it the concept of the crystal radio, and also added to it Tesla's theories, so that I'm giving more power. I'm boosting this machine up, and then I am designing it individually for you, for whoever wants to purchase this from me, because I'm adding certain components unique to who you are. And I'll ask, and I'll need certain particular information from you to be able to do that. There will be a very enhanced machine that will increase the possibilities of this having positive effects on your life. So there's going to be a lot more to this, and I will, in fact, I may have a picture of one here. Not on here, it's on a different. different one. Okay. But I'm going to get into that, and I'll be sharing that more. It's not going to happen this week. I've got several things to do this week. The parts are not in. I just ordered them. They should be, and I'm going to be spending the weekend in Mississippi. So by the time I get back Monday, I should have all the parts to start assembling this. I'm going to do the basic assembling of these machines. And then as you or whoever orders one and wants to try this, I will add your special components designed particularly for you on this. So look forward to that. I'm also going to probably create a unique website that'll connect to my other websites as far as this is concerned too. So anyway, now tonight, 7 p.m., Kevin and I will be back. I had internet problems last week and had to get actually a lot done. So I wasn't with him last Tuesday. Tonight, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time to 9 p.m. It's going to be 4 of us, or maybe 5, on the show. And we're going to talk. Kevin and I both have some introductions to make of some new things in our lives besides this machine I'm talking about that we want to share. And then there will be Madam Z, tarot card reader, and then our bone throwing lady, I think, is going to join us, Lisa Luna. So join us. That's going to be fun. They will be doing some readings, I'm sure. According to how that goes, probably won't have time for many stories, but it's going to be a busy, busy night. 7 p.m. live stream on Facebook and YouTube, Abnormal Alabama. So join us. Look forward to it.